Welcome back, first graders. It's Mrs. Caird, and I'm glad to see you back again. We are here for another day of learning. So yesterday, we talked about the long vowel I sound spelled with an E at the end of the word. And some of the words we talked about were dime, time, kite, ignite. And you did a great job with those words. We are going to today talk about a long vowel O sound, also spelled with an E at the end. So let's look at some of those words. All right. Okay, so here we have C-O-P. So this word just has an O, the only vowel, so it's going to be a short O, ah. So we would sound it out, k-ah, cop. Can you say that with me? K-ah, cop. Good. All right, now let's look at the E at the end. So now we have the O consonant E. So the E is going to make the O say its name. So we're going to sound it out. K-O-P, cope. Say that with me. K-O-P, cope. Very good. Okay, next we have H-A-P. Just one vowel, so it's short O, ah. Let's sound that one out together. Ah, hop. Very good. Now, with an E on the end, the E is going to make the O say its name. So, O, P, hope. Can you say that with me? O, P, hope. Very good. So, O consonant E says O. All right, this word, ah, t. One O, short vowel sound. So not. Can you say that with me? N, ah, t, not. Good. All right, let's look at this word now with an E at the end. So the E makes the O say its name. So we have n, o, t, note. Say that with me. N, o, t, note. Very good. One more. This one has a blend at the beginning. We have op, slop. All right, so just one O, it's short. So let's sound it out together. Op, slop. Good. What do you think the word's going to be when we add an E to it? Right? Slope. 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 Say that with me. Slope. Slope. Good. So O consonant E says O. Very good. Okay, let's look at a few sight words that we're going to see in our story. First one is what, and the next one is could. So words that really don't follow a rule that you have to memorize. Let's look at the first one. Let's spell that together. W-H-A-T, what? One more time. W-H-A-T, what? Okay, let's look at this slide. Here are the letters. They're not spelled correctly. Can you, on a piece of paper or with your finger on the table, write what correctly? Okay, you ready? There you go, W-H-A-T. Great job. What? Okay, let's look at our next word. Could. Let's spell that together. C-O-U-L-D. Could. All right, one more time. C-O-U-L-D. Could. All right, here we go. Remember how that's spelled? Here are the letters, but not in the right order. Can you write the word could correctly? Could. All right, let's check. C-O-U-L-D. Super. All right, good. And now we're going to look at some words from the story that you'll hear that you might not be familiar with. One word is lad. That just means a young boy. Another word, and this is also a long O with an E at the end, word is cove. And that's a small body of water that's next to a large body of water, like a bay would be near an ocean, something like that. Okay. Another word, stoked, and that is a long O also. And that means to add wood to the fire. And the last one, inspected. So it means to look at something very closely. All right. So we are now ready to go to the story. All right. And as I read the story, I'm going to ask you again to give me a thumbs up. So when you hear a long O or see the word that's spelled with an E at the end. Okay, so this story is called Mr. Mole's Stove. And a mole is this kind of animal, like a chipmunk or an animal that burrows under the ground. So Mr. Mole's Stove. And the author is Laura Appleton Smith. And the illustrator who drew the pictures is Preston Neal. Okay, so we're going to read the book. Again, remember a thumbs up every time you hear a long O word that's spelled with an E on the end. Mr. Mole's Stove. Mr. Mole lived in a hole at the top of a windswept slope. He dug his home in the sand with his little mole hands long ago when he was just a lad. In his hole, Mr. Mole had woven a bed with twigs and grass and rope. He stuffed it with fluff and bits of fabric and rug. It was a nest that kept him snug. But what made Mr. Mole's hole different? That was a tongue twister. From the rest of the holes on the slope was his stove. When Mr. Mole was a strong lad, he had dragged stone after stone up from the cove. Mr. Mole's hole was dug in a sandbank where no stones existed, but the cove was filled with rocks. The rest of the moles on the slope had poked fun at him. "You are nuts," they joked, as Mr. Mole dragged up stone after stone with a sack and a rope. But Mr. Mole did not take note. He had a plan to construct a stove that would warm his home for the rest of his days. Long ago, he had stacked stones and mud to construct a stove that kept him warm and snug. Now, as Mr. Mole sat and warmed his old bones, he was glad that he had dragged those stones. Just remembering dragging you stones up from the cove makes me want a nap, old Mr. Mole joked as he stoked his stove. Warm and relaxed, he fluffed his bed and dozed off for a nap. When Mr. Mole awoke from his nap, his nose was filled with smoke. He jumped up and opened his hole. As the smoke drifted out, he spotted the problem. One stone in his stove had broken. What was Mr. Mole to do? He felt too old to drag stones up the slope, but he had to cope, so he set off with his old sack and rope. Mr. Mole slipped and stumbled as he slid down the slope. He hoped that his old bones would not end up broken, too. When Mr. Mole got to the cove, he inspected the stones. Too big, too little, too jagged to fit. But then Mr. Mole spotted the stone. It sat in the bottom of the cove. It was flat and the perfect fit. That was it. But there was a problem. Mr. Mole was not the best swimmer. But Mr. Mole was not a mole to sit and mope. He disrobed and dove in. But no matter how he swam, he could not get to the stone. As Mr. Mole pondered what to do next, his friend the otter popped up and asked, "My friend Mr. Mole, why do you stand in the cove, frozen and wet?" "In the bottom of the cove sits the perfect stone that I must get to fix my stove, but I cannot swim to it," Mr. Mole told him. At that, Otter dove into the cove, and as quick as he was in, he was back. He had the stone in one hand and a clam in the other. "I owe you," Mr. Mole told Otter, "but what can I do?" "You can fix your stove with this perfect stone, and then you can warm me a pot of clam stew." Otter told him, "You help me and I help you. That is what friends do." So Mr. Mole hopped on Otter's back with his stone and his sack and his rope, and he rode back up the slope. Then he fixed his stove. And he fixed his friend the otter a pot of clam stew. The end. All right. So, did you see our words that we talked about, the vocabulary words and the sight words? Let's go back and find them. Let's see. So, first, the very beginning, we had the word lad, and that means a young boy. In this case, a young mole. So when it says he dug his home in the sand with his little mole hands long ago when he was just a lad. So when he was young. And we have home as a long O, consonant E at the end. Mole again, and good. All right, so lad is there. And then we're going to go to the page where we have cove. When Mr. Mole was a strong lad, he had dragged stone after stone up from the cove. Okay, so cove is this little part down here where he got his stones. We have stone, and of course, cove is another O consonant E word. Okay, so cove, our next word to find is stoked. So we said that means to add wood to the fire. So just remembering dragging you stones up from the cove makes me want to nap. Old Mr. Mole joked as he stoked his stove. So he's adding his more wood. Right, a lot of long O with an E words here. Stones, cove. Joked is new, and of course stoked is one, and stove. All right, and then the last vocabulary word that we had to look at was inspected, to look at closely. So he was inspecting his stones. When Mr. Mole got to the cove, he inspected the stones. Too big, too little, too jagged to fit. So he looked at them carefully. All right, we're going to go back to this page where we have what. What was Mr. Mole to do? So a question word. Usually you see that word in questions. What? And the last word we're going to find in our story here is could. Here it's used with not. So he disrobed and dove in, but no matter how he swam, he could not get to the stone. Could. All right, and some more O consonant E words here. Mope is a new one. Disrobed, dove. Okay, very good. So hopefully you've heard all of those great long O words. All right, so we're going to move on to our next spot. And I want to go over the homework pages with you. So again, there are a lot of pages. You do not need to do all of them, but they're good practice for you. You can either print it out if you're able to, or you can just look at the screen and write the words on a blank piece of paper. So again, you have some good comprehension questions, and you've got some spelling activities. So you can pick one of those or two to work on your own. And what I'm going to do is go over those sound boxes again with you. So we're going to go on to our sound boxes. All right, and here they are. Okay, so we're going to go back to the words. We're going to go back to the words that we talked about earlier, and I'll show you how we would fill in our sound boxes. So our first word was cope. So we have k, then o, p, So the E is going to go into that last box with the P because the E is silent. It doesn't make its own sound. So cope for cope. Right, next, we have hope. So O, that's how hope would look. Okay, next we have note. So N, O, T. Again, O, consonant, E, and the E is silent, so it stays in that box, or goes in that box. And our last word we did was slope. So S-L-O-P, slope. There we go. All right. Let's spell a few words on your own, like we did yesterday. Okay, so I'm going to tell you some words. I want you to remember O, consonant E, says O. So it's going to be a long O. And you're going to either write on a piece of paper or with your finger on the table. Okay, so the first word I want you to write is rope. He carried the stone with a rope in the story. Rope. How are you going to write rope? Okay, are you ready? R-O-P-E. Super. Very good. Okay, let's try another one. Joke. She told a funny joke. Joke. All right, let's check joke. J-O-K-E. Very good job. And our last word to write is broke. She broke her new toy. Broke. So you got to blend in the front. Broke. How are you going to spell that one? Broke. All right, let's check. B-R-O-K-E. Wonderful. All right, you guys did a wonderful job. Okay. All right. So again, it would be a great idea to come back and reread the story. Go back through, look for those long O words. Remember as you're working on your homework that a packet that O, consonant E, says O as you're doing it. And I will be back again tomorrow and we'll review some of the things. One more time, I want to remind you about this week being Teacher Appreciation Week. Are you thinking of a way you can tell your teacher that you appreciate her and thank her or him for all they do? So think about that. And I will see you tomorrow. I had a great time. You guys did a great job. And we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.